So as we work up the chain, we've been doing a lot on the posterior side as far as calves and arches, and we're going to get into the hamstrings and buttocks, low back, all that stuff. But for people that have knee pain and hip pain, we're going to go into the quads now. So how you would basically start, the tools that you're going to have with this one, foam roller, you can have your baseball, lacrosse ball thing handy as we get up a little bit higher. But for right now, let's go foam roller, and we're gonna go lay down flat on it. So with this approach, kind of looks a little perverted, but you're just gonna go back and forth. If you're having low back pain, it's probably because you're collapsing like this. So try and maintain somewhat of a plank position, okay? You kind of army crawl out, back, forth, right? Now, if you're someone that's never done this before, you might find a lot of tension here and a lot of pain. Like anywhere else that I've told you, do it to what you can, to the extent that you can, and take what you can handle, and then rest for a second. But the goal is that we're looking for these little speed bumps. So I got one right here, we'll say, and what I'm gonna have you do is take both legs and you're gonna pull it to your butt and kind of pump them like this, that same gas pedal mechanism. Now, as I'm doing this, I'm actually moving on the roller back and forth. All right, so I'm trying to get that knot because it doesn't exist in just one plane of motion. When we tighten our muscle and we kind of go across it like this, we're pulling the band back, and then when we go to extend it, we've already kind of like breached the castle wall, so to speak. So we're creating some room. Now, that's with two legs. So if you want to get a little bit more intimate, and if you can handle a little bit more pain, you're going to do the kind of Spider-Man approach where you got one leg like you're climbing a building. You're going to go one leg on, one leg off to the side. You can go from the ground like this, and you can get a little bit higher into your hip and your groin, which is where we're going to go next. But remember, same deal. You want to try and get, there's the quad, there's 4 muscles to it for a reason. So you want to get the inner thigh. You could get into your adductors from here. These are actually really painful ones. People always neglect them, but they're terrible. So you can kind of get into it like this. And then I'm going to flip it back. We're going to get onto the quad. I'm going to go all the way up into my hip. And then what I'm actually going to do is rotate onto my side. So we're going to address the IT band. Now there's a lot of controversy as to, do you really get anything out of the IT band when you roll it? Is it doing anything? The answer, I mean, they've gone back and forth on it, but it is beneficial to you, and you're going to feel some relief to it. However, it is very painful. So put one foot down like this. You're going to cruise back and forth gently. If you find some gnarly knots in there, you can try and floss that knee back. That's painful. And out as you're going back and forth. Now, IT bands are particularly tight for bartenders because we're constantly leaning. Servers too, when you're talking at your tables, you're always kind of putting your weight and shifting towards one side. As you see when we get up into the hips, like I talked about in the last video, you're going to have a dominant leg, and that's usually the one that you're leaning towards most. So as we start to finish up here, you're going to do this to both sides, back and forth, right? And then you're going to get up into your hip, into the PSOAS. Ooh, PSOAS, okay? It's this secret little muscle that attaches to your low back. It's a hip flexor muscle. So for us, it's actually one of the main causes. Can you see me? A little bit? No? Okay. So it's one of the main causes to low back pain. It attaches in your low back, and it goes through your body and attaches to the front of your hip as well. And what it does is it helps to flex and extend the leg. Well, when we're constantly in this bent forward position all day, that muscle, think of it like your bicep. If you walked around squeezing your arm like this all day, and then you try to straighten it out, it's going to cramp up a little bit. Well, imagine that, but deep in your body. So when I go into this release, it's very intimate and it's kind of painful, okay? But it is very helpful for low back pain. So after you work your way up, you get into your groin. We'll just address the front of the groin right now, right? So to get to your PSOAS, show you. You're going to take lift your shirt, you can go your hip bone and your belly button. You find the two of those. Then you kind of walk 2 fingers in. You basically meet the difference there, right? So it's kind of where the V almost starts. And what you're going to do is you can take your own fingers, you can take 2 fingers, and you're going to kind of prod in there. Now, again, this is going to be intimate. So bend your knees first, poke around, and it's going to feel like you're trying to tickle your spine, except it's not fun. And then what you're looking for is this almost nauseating feeling. And when you hit it, you'll know. And I'll talk more about this later, but for now, it's actually easiest, and I'm going to show you what to do with the ball first, unless you have a kettlebell or a dumbbell. Because in this case, you're going to take that kettlebell and the corner of it, and you're going to dig it in there. And when you find it, breathe in, and then exhale, straighten that leg and put a little more pressure. And then breathe in, yep, I got it. Okay, so you could do that release 3 to 5 times, and that's manually with this. You can use something that you have in your house to dig in there. If you have a partner, they can help inflict a lot of pain on you. What you could do with this ball is the same spot. So we're going to go from the top of that hip crest, the bone right there from your belly button. When you're laying on top, it's going to take a little bit more maneuvering, but you want to try and get it in that same spot there. Okay, and the reason I'm addressing this is because it is a hip flexor. So we're going to take it and roll over. Now, if you want, you could start at the top of your hip, right? So where that groin starts to connect, where you raise your leg, you could start there first. And sometimes people will feel a big release here. And by release, I mean they might cry, but it's generally pretty painful. And then when you get higher into the hip, now I'm going to start to shift the ball. So now it's coming off my hip, going towards my groin, going towards my belly button. Okay, so right there, I'm basically on top of it. So what you're going to do from this position is I'm going to stretch and extend, but I'm going to push my hips, so squeeze my ass and tuck into the ground with my pelvis. So now I know I'm directly on top of it, but I'm actually kind of lengthening it right now. And what I'm going to do is breathe in like a Sphinx pose. It's on my right side, so I'm going to exhale down like that. I'm going to stay on top of it, breathe in. You want to breathe into it while the ball's in there. It's as uncomfortable as it is. And then back up. And again. Lengthen out. Breathe. And relax. Okay? You can do that about 3 to 5 times a piece. Now, it will be tender, so I do recommend starting kind of gentle on it, okay? Treat it like a first date, warm it up to it. But if you go right into it, you're gonna feel a lot of tension right away, okay? So as you start to limber up a little bit more, you'll probably be able to find it a little quicker. But in the meantime, you just kind of have to roll it around in there and looking for the spot. You could watch a couple YouTube videos on it, maybe I'll attach a link below. And it might be able to give you a little bit more out of it. But that's all for here to here. Now we'll go and flip over and work on our butt, hamstrings, and low back.